Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Jay Roach's Meet the Parents in the year 2000. This is a film that I rewatched tonight. I've seen it many times now. And I watched it quite a lot as a kid, and along with kind of Meet the Fockers, which is the sequel, and it spawned, of course, Little Fockers, which isn't anywhere near as good, but it's still okay, I think, off memory. I haven't seen them, them ones in quite a few years now. But yes, it done really well at the box office and everything. Of course, it's got Ben Stiller in it. He's one of my favourite comedians. Robert De Niro, who is if you didn't know, my favourite actor of all time. I think he's definitely the greatest actor of all time. Back in his day, that is. Now, he's like a lot of great actors, legendary actors. Al Pacino and stuff as well. Not at the best kind of track record, in recent years. Really, this century for the most part. Massive dip, but Robert De Niro is still my favourite actor of all time. I definitely think he's the greatest when he was at his game. But yes, it's it's the year 2000, and it's just a great comedy. I think it's very, very underrated. Basic story is Ben Stiller. He plays Greg Focker, and he's a nurse, male nurse, and he basically wants to marry his girlfriend, really, Pam, and you learn very early on, he's about to actually propose to her, but you learn that on the phone that her father, Jack Burns, played by Robert De Niro, is very, very strict, that sort of thing, and he figures out he needs to kind of ask his permission, and her sister is actually getting married in 2 weeks, so they're actually they go to kind of visit, and it's kind of coincides with him meeting the parents. That's why it's called Meet the Parents. As well, Dina Burns, she's the mum, and basically very early on he goes and meets the parents, and trying to basically impress the parents, kind of gain their trust and everything, and permission, approval, but of course nothing goes to plan really, and kind of all everything just unfolds and everything goes wrong for him, throughout the film, and just the way that happens is just so well done. It's kind of just a classic setup, a classic, series of events that unfolds. And I think, De Niro, some people have said he's miscast in this film. I don't think so at all. He's just amazing in this film. And it's just a classic sort of setup, and everything, the way it happens, it's far better than any of the sequels. But yes, as well, Teri Polo, who plays Pam, she's great in this film, as well. Blythe, who plays Dina. There's a great cast in this film, but it really is the script. It's just stunning, and just the way that it all unfolds. It's just great. It's just a stunning film, really. I think it all kind of works. You could say perfectly. I don't quite think it's a masterpiece, but for what it's trying to be, I think. Seriously underrated. The first act of the film, the kind of intro to the film, is nowhere near as good as the rest of the film. Once he arrives, at the kind of house of the Burns, it just unfolds so well, and it's just stunning. Robert De Niro in this film he's always against Ben Stiller's character of Greg, throughout the film, but it's never done in a heavy-handed kind of way. It's it's always it's just so well written, and stuff. And of course, the performances are great. Robert De Niro is just stunning in this film. You kind of love to hate him. Kind of a classic villain, really. And Ben Stiller, star of the show, really. Just such a character. I usually do like Ben Stiller in most things he's in. And in this film especially, he's kind of just a relatable character. You feel really sorry for him. You can kind of get into his shoes as well, and it's just something that it's kind of very, very simple kind of situations, but ones that are just they couldn't have gone any worse for him basically throughout the film, and it just allows for so much comedy but also tension, and you just want him to kind of get through this kind of stay, at the parents' house, and everything to go right for him. And of course, throughout most of the film, nothing goes right for him. It all just everything goes wrong. It's one of the classic films, and it's just so well done. You know, it's such a funny film. You know, so many standout scenes. You know, and even the first half an hour is just really perfect. You know, as once he arrives at the house, you know, it's just very very subtle at times, and it just kind of, you know, the way that Robert De Niro gradually gets more and more kind of angry with him and kind of distrusts him, and you know, he's not too welcoming at first and stuff, but he really just, the more and more Ben Stiller kind of is there, you know, he does stuff that kind of pisses off, you know, this character of Jack, and he clashes with him so much throughout the film. And you know, the scene where they're in the car as well, very early on, just kind of silence, that awkward silence and stuff. And you know, it's just, that's one of the things about this film. You know, it's, it's how awkward the situations are. That kind of just is so well done, really, and it just, it's very very uncomfortable to watch, but it's also at the same time really really funny, and tense as well. You know, it is a drama film, quite a lot of drama in it, and it never gets downplayed by the comedy. It's a great tone to this film, and you know, Jay Roach, I believe he directed some of the Austin Powers films. From what I've seen of them, I'm not a fan personally. Not my type of film really. But you know, this is completely different. It's very very subtle at times. Just kind of believable stuff that happens. You know, it does, obviously there's stuff that you think, oh wow, that is really just so unlucky. You know, but it's stuff that could really, all of it could happen. So in that sense, it is quite grounded, and there's never any over the top kind of humour. So it's very very different to something like Austin Powers. Personally, I just don't like them films. But yes, the script by Jim Hertzfeld and John Hamburg, it was, is pretty genius actually. It just works so well. And you know, all the characters like Jack Burns, he's kind of just, he's not just you know, one-sided villain and stuff. Although you know, he is mostly against Greg. You know, it's so great, so, you know, great exposition in the film. That's one of the things. You know, and he's of course, you find out that he was in the CIA and stuff, and other things unfold, which I won't ruin that. But it's just such a perfect kind of perfect situation. He used to kind of be, you know, there's kind of surveillance and everything, watching people, and you know, Greg's already paranoid. The character of Greg, you know, Ben Stiller, and that kind of just, you know, it kind of, it's a kind of setup that you think, oh, it couldn't go be any, you know, worse for him, and it just, you know, the things that unfold over the film, you know, it just keeps getting mounting up, you know, to a point that where in the final act, you know, it kind of just all explodes in that sense, and you know, it's just, it's such a great film. I think it's not just a good comedy that's a good time. It really is. I think it's really just stunningly made. You know, the performances are great. The script, as I've said, is just great. It's stunning, and you know, it's just never, great scene followed by great scene. You know, the opening intro, couple, you know, a few minutes or so, you know, they're not quite as great as the rest of the film. But you know, it's a romance as well. You know, between Greg and Pam, and you know, I think it's a really great romance actually. Quite touching at times, and it's just the dynamics between the family and then all the friends of the family and stuff, and then the fact that you've got these character, the guy and Debbie, the sister, kind of getting married. That kind of just adds another layer to things, and messes things up for Greg. Kind of halfway through the film, you know, it's just one of the things about this that's so genius. Actually, I would say genius. It's just the way that it's relatable situations, you know, awkward situations that could easily, you know, happen, and you know, just the way that you can kind of relate to and stuff. Stuff that's just so, it's cringy at times, you know, you really, it's really tense and everything, and uncomfortable, but it's just so well done, you know. And the bit where, for example, Greg is given a lie detector test by Robert De Niro's character, or the bit where, you know, he goes downstairs in his pajamas in front of everyone, and you know, they kind of make a joke, and then at the end of the kind of you know, scene, he kind of makes a joke kind of related to that, and they don't laugh. It's one of them things, you know. It's just such a great kind of situation comedy kind of thing there, and it's just classic comedy. I think, you know, there's some slapstick in the film as well, which is great. and it's got little details, you look from early on that kind of play out and uh, kind of cause things to happen in the second half of the film quite a lot. And especially the things involving the cat, that's really great. And yeah, it's just really great characters, all of the family really and stuff. And the dynamics, just the way that everyone is kind of against Greg throughout the film, apart from the mother, Dina, and of course Pam for the most part. And but it's not done in a heavy-handed way, I don't feel. It just allows for such great comedy, masterful comedy at times, actually, I would say. Such an underrated film, and as well the editing's great. Just always used for comedy effect. Owen Wilson in this film as well is great for he's got a minor role, but it's a memorable one. Of course, Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson together in a lot of films are great. They're quite in quite a lot of films together. And actually, yeah, he's a character that kind of doesn't go against Greg in the film. But yes, it just all the characters and the cast. Performances are all great, I think. It's at least memorable, and it's just the way that it progresses. The narrative is just very very clear, and just compelling throughout. I feel, it's just a great film. I don't quite think it's a masterpiece. Not that it's got big flaws or anything. Just doesn't doesn't quite reach just that level. Some films that don't. Doesn't quite elevate to that level, and it doesn't quite move and stuff. And it's not masterfully direct, edited and masterful cinematography. I think the direction is pretty much flawless for what it's trying to be. But it's not like 2001: Space Odyssey. Not that it needs to be, but it just doesn't quite reach that masterpiece level for me. But I think it's among my favourite comedies actually. I just cared about everything that was going on. You're just constantly rooting for this character of Greg, of course, and Greg Fokker. It's just so funny throughout. There's great slapstick. The script is really really tight and just works so wonderfully. Actually, I think it's one of the best comedy scripts kind of the 2000s. Actually, it's just there. It just works so well. Just brilliant. So overall, I think Meet the Parents is a truly great comedy film. If you've not seen it, highly recommend it. And just for me, to wrap up, it's just a great film. I think that all the comedy works quite perfectly. It's not got any of the over the top moments. Very very contained, controlled comedy that. It's just the way the dynamics work throughout the film. Between all the characters and the way that Greg is just desperate to get acceptance from this Jack character, the father, and throughout the film it just keeps it up, that tension and that kind of, it's got such a drive to the film. I was constantly rooting for Greg, and of course I love the romance in it as well, between him and Pam, and her brother and sister and stuff, all the things that happen with them. Owen Wilson's great in this film, just always memorable really in a film, Really like Owen Wilson, and Ben Stiller is he kind of plays the role to perfection. Kind of this awkward, guy that just tries. You can't not like him. He just tries to do everything to impress this guy, and he's not having it. He just such a relatable character, and just the way that the awkward kind of situations play out, just quite masterfully actually, for the most part. And all the acts are great, in the film. It's just it's got full of moments that kind of just surprise you, because of how much things go wrong for this guy, and it's just got a great protagonist and an antagonist, Robert De Niro, just kind of always getting in the way of Greg's plans in that sense. And it's just, I really like how peaceful it is at times as well, just the early scenes, and just it's a very warm film, warm kind of family film you could say. But yeah, I think this is the one of the three that is actually a great film. Wouldn't say the other two are. Certainly not Little Fockers. But this has just got a stunning script, great performances and everything. I think that the filmmaking, editing and stuff is great as well. Not quite masterful, it just doesn't go the extra mile really to get that masterpiece level for me. But it's just for what it is. It's kind of just pretty flawless. I think it's just great. Character-driven film with all the different plot points. the kind of yeah, all the plot points are just kind of things happen throughout the film that kind of just turn everything around and stuff, and it's just really well, just so well crafted in that sense. You know, it just, and the narrative is really really strong, and yeah, just a great film for me, comedy. I think I would give this film a 98%. You know, I just think it does pretty much everything right. You know, and it's among my favourite comedy films actually. You know, and great characters, performances, as I've said. Randy Newman as well does the a lot of the soundtrack. Great songs in this film, and yeah, it's just the way it progresses, and the outcome of the film is very very pleasing. You know, very satisfying, and a compelling film from start to finish. Really, not just a funny film, but one that is a comedy that is well crafted, and that does have drama and stuff in as well. And, you know, everything that is kind of, yeah, it's kind of just really stunningly thought out and executed. You know, it's just a great film for me. So yes, Meet the Parents. You know, I've always loved this film. Not you know, the kind of a surprise that I've got given this film such a high score. You know, you know, many people would probably disagree with my score, but that's just me. You know, I think this is a great film actually. But I don't think it's a masterpiece really. But yes, no, I love this film, and highly recommend it if you've not seen it already. So yes, thanks for watching my review of Meet the Parents.